Commissioner Thomas. I'm going to ask Commissioner Thomas to go on ahead and to give the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We just thank you for this time we can come together and do our county's business. We are fortunate to live in this county. We're fortunate to live in this nation. We just thank those who just watch over us and guardians and protect us. We ask you to just be with us tonight. Just be present in this meeting, just in each of our hearts. Just guide our hearts, our minds, and our actions, and all things we do for your glory and the benefit of our kingdom. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask if there's any changes or additions to the agenda.
I want to pull my item, Mr. Chairman. I'm waiting on some. There's supposed to have been a speed study done along with it. I don't think it's been performed yet, so I'll bring it back at a later date.
Okay, so you're going to pull out your Commissioner item number 10?
Correct.
I want to add two items under general business. One is a legislative and grant update. The second is to add a item for the purchase of asphalt millings. And also I have a Section 8 update that I need to give you guys under my time.
Okay, we're going to add some items up underneath general business. Is there any more additions or changes to the agenda?
Pull item 7 from the consent, sorry, Commissioner Thomas. Pull item 7 from the consent agenda.
Item number 7 from the consent agenda.
And I'd like to add a announcement during awards and presentations. It's supposed to be, there's someone here to make an announcement regarding the Wakulla County Swine Show this weekend.
Okay, if there's no more additions or changes, we can get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, if we have any citizens that have signed for the first section for citizens to be heard at the beginning of the beginning of the meeting, do we have any, Paige?
Let her organize it real quick.
Okay.
She got engulfed.
Looks like we have a few.
Do you have any citizens for the first wave?
Do you want these letters from the workshop?
She did write one or two, and she wants me before I asked her if she wants them. If she wants the first or second.
Okay, Mr. David Damon.
David Damon. Thank you, Commissioners. I just want to say real quick, I want to talk about the wetlands petition that's been going on. It's been very successful. As many of you have heard, the citizens have spoken. They have signed the petition. It's been really interesting. Every time you knock on a door or you talk to a citizen of the county and they want to ask, what's this about? A lot of times they don't have a clue. And before you know it, they're asking, well, who are the commissioners behind this? And each time, of course, we remind them who the commissioners are behind this. But I'm here to remind you the citizens have spoken loud and clear on this issue. You haven't listened to them in the past. You've ignored them in the past. And I hope you will hear what they're saying now, because they have spoken, and we have met the 30% threshold. And having done that, if you proceed down this road you're going down, you're setting us up for lawsuits, and it's on the 4 of your shoulders. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Ms. Janice Eakin.
Okay, I just wanted to go on record.
All right.
Hello, my name is Janice Aiken. I'm the president of CHAT, the Citizens for Humane Animal Treatment. CHAT is and has always been a community-based organization. As our role changes in Wakulla County and our focus shifts from managing the adoption center to community projects, we still have a vested interest in the well-being of domestic animals in Wakulla County. Due to budget constraints, we can assume that the control of dangerous, abandoned, abused, and neglected animals is not near the top of Wakulla County government's priority list. That said, Chat must ring the alarm to urge the county commissioners and the administrator to not let much time pass without developing a plan of action to determine how animals will be cared for once they come into the county's ownership. As a part of that plan, Chat also urges the county to put steps in place to ensure that animals are healthy and safe before being released from animal control. There's a cost associated with this, but there are many benefits, and it is the right thing to do. In the past several years, tens of thousands of dollars were spent on spaying and neutering of dogs and cats in this community adopted through Chat, which helped to reduce the overpopulation in Wakulla County. Currently, Florida statute states that provisions shall be made for the sterilization of all dogs and cats sold or released for adoption from any public or private animal shelter or animal control agency operated by a humane society or by a county, city, or and other incorporated political subdivisions. And it goes on to provide more information. And failure to either party to comply with the provisions of this paragraph shall be a non-criminal violation as defined, punishable by fine, forfeiture, or other civil penalty. This is a serious situation, and our current ordinance needs to be modified for this new statute. Of the options available to the county, we'd like to list the top three that appear to be feasible. Number one, issue a reasonable and effective RFP for a properly insured nonprofit humane organization to run the adoption center. The Chat Board of Directors is willing to assist the county in developing a reasonable and effective RFP. You could broaden animal control's responsibilities to include an official adoption program of healthy and temperamentally sound animals, and of course use volunteers to help manage that program. Adoption fees could offset the cost of the program. Option number 3 is establish a formal process for releasing the animals back into the county through rescue groups.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Chris Russell.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. Chris Russell, 92 Pimlico. Our first Wakulla County Charter Review Committee meeting will be March 6th. I think you're all aware of that. In advance of that, I'd like to ask if y'all would work with staff to see if we couldn't get some type of electronic media set up, maybe a web page or something. I think it's imperative that we allow all citizens to have a voice on that. I think we can probably meet the needs of the Sunshine Law, but we know every citizen can't make every meeting. So we need to have some avenue that we can be out there and open it up to everyone to have a voice in that. Obviously, we need to show transparency as well. So if we could do that, if we could get ahead of that curve, that'll be one of the first items I'm going to bring up at that meeting that night, is to find a way to get more citizen involvement. I think we all agree on that. Second thing, good luck tonight. Miss Jerry Cooper called me the cookie man last time this controversial issue, if you will, came up. I brought the cookies with the frosting. I said we're a little crumbling inside, whatever. Good luck on that. I hope it goes well tonight. I hope we all respect our neighbors and remember that we are one community. Last but not least, there's a lot of trash on the road. I don't know what's going on. You know, we pay for trash service that was supposed to help get rid of the trash on the road. It seems like there's more on the road. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. If you're paying for service, why are you dumping on the side of the road? I know there's a lot of empty foreclosed properties. I'm sure Waste Pro's contract was based on amount of trash being hauled off. Well, if those properties are empty, they're not hauling it off. Maybe we need to adjust it, bring it down, and take that extra money or that split, if you will, and put it in some more trash control, because it's getting a little disgusting out there. Once again, good luck tonight, and if you have any questions about Charter Review Committee, let me know. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Eugene Watkins is the next speaker.
My name is Eugene Watkins of Crawfordville, Florida. I have visited over 1,200 homes and collected more than 1,000 signed petitions supporting the right to vote on retaining the wetlands ordinance. The thing that most impressed me is that there were no economic or political boundaries as to who would sign the petition. People understand how important water is to future generations. Many people told me about changes they have seen in water quality and fishing during their lifetime. The citizens know wetlands filter nitrates and protect our waterways from algae blooms. 80% of the people I encountered want to vote on this issue. I asked the Commission to allow the wetlands buffers and the ordinance to remain in place and let the citizens of Wakulla County vote on this important issue in November 2014. Thank you.
Our next citizen is Mr. Vic Lambo.
Thank you. I'm Vic Lambu, Chair of the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance, and as well, I believe, a self-appointed spokesman for Wakulla's Golden Goose. That is our wetlands. Gentlemen, wetlands are a great economic driver for the well-being of this county. 4 of you want to do away with our local protection of our wetlands, and you complain that the state and federal government will take care of that. You ignore the fact that even they do not have the manpower to do the job. And I find it odd you are for local control for just about everything except wetlands. You have great dismay for the regulation of fishing nets by the state. Consistent, you 4 are definitely not. Some of you, especially Commissioner Thomas, loves to raise bogus technicalities, outlandish assertions that our petition drive does not deal with one subject, as if it's like saying that a regulation dealing with traffic lights is two subjects because it mentions both red and green lights. I know that you all are aware now that we have petitions signed by more than the 5,550 Wakulla citizens. Let me repeat, more than 5,550 citizens, the number needed to put the initiative on the ballot at the next general election. Our citizens have spoken loudly and clearly. They want to decide themselves if wetlands will be protected. The number of signatures we obtained is 3 times higher than what is required in any other Florida county. Now it's time for you commissioners to retreat from grandstanding, such as Mr. Thomas has by saying that we want to take our citizens' rights away by letting them vote to make the decision themselves. Evidently, Mr. Thomas believes that our citizens are just too dumb to decide for themselves. We know our citizens are definitely smart enough to make up their own minds. Yes, our citizens will decide if they want Wakulla's Golden Goose, our wetlands, to live on. We trust them to make an informed and proper decision. Thank you.
Mr. Anapek, you didn't put on here whether you wanted to go to the first one or the second citizen. First one? Okay, come on up.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. Well, congratulations, Commissioner Moore. I'm sure you all have heard the news that Mr. Moore, I came here the last meeting to talk about sneaking a land deal, but it had already been snuck in. And there it was. For $855,000, Mr. Moore sold 2.61 acres to take southbound traffic that has bypassed the high school for decades and route it right into the high school parking lot, which is a danger to teenagers. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been doing a little telephone calling to get some facts on this realignment project. And here's what I found out. First of all, there are no safety studies that show this is needed. According to the CRTPA, which I believe Mr. Merritt heads, these were not turned over to the CRTPA as the law says it's supposed to. The funding wasn't told to the CRTPA as the law says it was supposed to. It just happened from a discretionary fund. This issue has been misrepresented by the desire for traffic lights. Who doesn't want traffic lights? Yes, put a traffic light at the high school. Also put one at the intersection right now on US 319 and 98 so the traffic can continue to bypass the high school and keep our teenagers safe. The CRTPA says this is not a safe realignment, and their prime example is Childs High School in Leon County. It is not safe to route teenage drivers onto an arterial. In addition to that, no elected official, and let me say it again, not one elected official has voted to do this. Did you all vote to do this? You prioritize the traffic that's congested in the north part of the county, where all the commuters have accidents, and it's unsafe. And yet this is happening in the south part of the county. DOT said to me that no money, again, no money is budgeted for this because this county didn't turn over, quote, produced studies or traffic analyses for the north part of the county above Crawfordville. While you were lobbying so hard since 2007 for your land to be purchased for this intersection, the county has been jamming up in the north part of the county. In addition to that, there was a letter uncovered written by your county administrator on this county letterhead, and you weren't copied on it, that told DOT that this county was for it. How many public hearings have we had to say this county is for it or against it? Can you count them? I can. I think I found one in 1996. There might have been others. I can't find them. They may be there. So here's the question. Do you accept this intersection being realigned to endanger our teenagers? If not, confirm what I've just said, and please do something about it.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Okay, we have no more citizens to be heard in the first section. We're going to move on to our first public hearing.
Did you get it? Okay. Okay.
Can I just make the motion? Do we have to?
Well, hold on. Let me. We were working on another issue here real quick. Excuse me, let me get to it. This agenda item requests the board to conduct a public hearing and consider purchase and sale agreement between Wakulla County and Capital City Bank for 7 parcels of land for county parks and recreation purposes. I actually was the one that canceled the previous meeting or the workshop that we were going to have based upon Commissioner Moore actually pulled his support for this project, and it had not been before the board until then, so therefore...
Mr. Administrator, I'd like to withdraw that.
I'll go ahead and make
Therefore,
the
this
motion
is a procedural issue that needs to go and get
Okay.
taken care of for the bank, and then we'll be done with it.
Okay.
Can I go ahead and make the motion not to approve and conduct a public hearing? Do
I
not
think
approve?
Commissioner Moore just made the...
Okay, I'll second him then.
Yeah.
So I want you to repeat your motion, Commissioner Moore.
Number 2.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion made and seconded for option number 2. Is that...
That's correct.
Now, do we have to actually, let me ask you just for procedural reasons, do we have to actually open up and have a motion to open up into the public hearing to be able to make, so...
Yes, so we can close...
Do we?
No.
Okay,
Motion was not to have a public
sorry.
hearing.
Okay,
Motion not to have a
okay.
public hearing.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion made and second not to have the, not to proceed with the public hearing. Is there any discussion from, any discussion from commissioners?
Yes. That was a yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Kessler.
So there was a workshop that was also scheduled for this, that you, Mr. Chairman, had canceled, correct?
Well, I want to repeat that, that it was, the administrator...
I talked to the chairman and told him I was going to be canceling that.
It was the administrator that made the decision, and he asked would I be in agreement with it, and I told the administrator that I would. Is there anything else? Okay, all in favor for the... okay, I want to ask the board's minute. I've got 2 citizens that want to speak on this issue.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and let them speak. I'm going to let, and then after they speak, we'll go ahead and vote. The first one is Chris Russell.
I guess I should sit right here by you. It might be easier to get up here every time. I think this right here is a good example of why we need to have the electronic media with the charter review committee. I totally get why we're doing what we're doing. Totally get it. Let's not waste time with the purple workshop if it's not going to go anywhere. Problem is, it's being articulated in your meeting here. We could do that ahead of time, and we could have that out there. Procedurally, this is a bad procedure. I get the intent behind it, but it just doesn't look good. So, being that case with the Charter Review Committee coming up, I don't want to see that. If we have something where we have to change it for common sense like this is, we need to get that out there. We need to let people know what we're doing. We don't need to come to a meeting when we're expecting a workshop on something and have it changed in. Thank you.
Our next citizen to speak is Dana Peck.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. I think you've got a real serious problem about the way you're doing business. Because for one commissioner to say, I'm going to withdraw this to the county administrator tells the chairman it's not going to be an item on the agenda. You've got communication going, gang, and it's out of the sunshine. And if people wanted to press it, you'd be in a lot of trouble, I suspect. But again, on this issue, Mr. Moore, once again, I guess who's happy since he reported last year he's in the hole 188,000, now he's 855,000 richer, wanted to negotiate a deal to buy 170 plus acres of land, or 150 acres plus, for soccer fields, or maybe 40 soccer fields, which you could fit easily onto that much land. So, where is the representation for the people of this county? And how are you spending time as commissioners that you would even entertain negotiating this deal, which you did, and have Mr. Edwards sign the contract, which he did? There are real problems in this county. There's drainage problems in Panacea. They're not attended to. There's contaminated water. People can't swim in it. And I bet you they don't want to eat shrimp from it either. There are sewer problems, and if you don't realize that, please come to my house at 2 o'clock in the morning and I will let you hear how the sewer problems fill the night air. In addition to that, your county employees haven't had a raise since they don't remember when. And you have taxed everything that moves in this county in order to make a budget, and you entertain the idea of going in the hole $500,000 for 150 acres of land, or 170 in the center of the county, for maybe soccer fields someday? I don't understand your thinking. This may make Mr. Moore happy. I do not think it makes the people of Wakulla County happy. And it was a stroke of genius to pull it.
Okay, that's the only citizens we had to speak. We've already had a motion and a second.
I'd like to make
Is there any
another
more?
comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner Castro.
I think the board had approved the item for Commissioner Moore to proceed and negotiate a contract, that it was non-binding to the county. We understand the finances of $500,000 now, and another $500,000 to make it into a facility. And, you know, from the very start, I think there were some of us on this board who realized that was not really a good option for the county. And because we have all those things that Ms. Peck described, plus simple things like no white stripes on certain of our roads that are needed. I mean, we have basic infrastructure. So I agree that entertaining that was a bad idea.
I think it was worth at least looking at. It didn't pan out, and here we are. It didn't make financial sense to the county, but if we just don't look at things because we don't think in general they're not going to work, I think we're being remiss. We'll at least look at things.
You know, we get like a $500 bill, a $500,000 bill in the county where we're facing a potential deficit of $600,000. That's
For all those people who have children who tell me that they need recreation, that we need to do something for our kids, and recreation keeps them out of trouble, I will continue to do 100% of everything I can to support a rec park as we go forward. That's just the way it is. I love kids, and I think we do too little. We put everything in the county in front of the people who are most important in this county, and our county depends on those kids. They will be here where we're sitting before you can turn around. And in order to have good kids, you got to keep them involved in school and sports and band, and it's good. And I will continue to do absolutely everything I can.
And I'd like to respectfully remind the commissioner that he was the one that suggested that we sell the community center.
Okay, before we get into this back and forth, I'm going to go ahead and just call this for a vote. So all in favor of not approving all in favor of option 2 of not approving the public hearing and not approving the proposed purchase from Capital City for 7 parcels. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Louis, you get the honor of this one.
Yes, Commissioners, this next item is for adoption of a comprehensive plan amendment amending policy and repealing Policy 4.1 of the conservation element pertaining to wetlands. The board may recall this was transmitted to the state on November 4th, 2013. The language has not changed from the transmittal stage and is included in option 1, which is the recommendation for adoption. The state did submit comments which are included as attachment 3, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have on the item or on the state's comments. Please note that I think it's important for us to note that even after this, if this passes and becomes effective, we are still enforcing the wetland ordinance, which has buffers, so that will not change until the wetland ordinance is addressed. But again, we're recommending option 1 and available to answer any questions.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve to conduct a public hearing and vote to adopt the proposed comprehensive plan amendment, amending Policy 2.3 and repealing Policy 4.1 of the conservation element pertaining to wetlands, CP 13-02.
Second.
Have a motion made and second. Okay, we have some citizens to speak on this issue. I'm going to go ahead and let the citizens speak, and then we'll discuss amongst the commissioners. Our first citizen is Chuck S.
See if I can do this technology stuff, you know. I'm kind of challenged. So, you all know my opinion on this one. I'm not going to restate my opinion on this. But over the course of this discussion, we've heard a lot of comments about wetlands that have been ecologically and actually false. And one of the first ones, we have a host of isolated wetlands like this in our county. And one of the first comments I heard was that they're well protected. Well, one of the interesting things is if you look at the line right here at the edge of between this green, this is the soils of Wakulla County. And if you look at that line, that green line between these soils here that were developed in the Pleistocene and the soils over here in Wakulla County that were developed back in the Miocene, those are totally different ecological systems. And yes, out in the national forest, we have lots of protection because we have lots of ponds protected. But in the area of the county that's in that green, which is mostly the private land, we don't have any protection from the national forest. Now, the national forest was developed because nobody wanted that land. It had very, very low productivity. It was abandoned on the tax rolls, and in the 1930s, the federal government took it over to put jobs back in the county. The green part of the county, that upland soil that's very productive, was left in private hands because people wanted it. And that is why we have very little protected of these wetlands that are in the green part of the soil. Now, one of the interesting things about those ponds up in that green area is the water is not contained. So what this shows what happens between one of those isolated wetlands and Blue Sink up in Leon County, which is in that same green area. And what it shows is that those isolated wetlands are directly connected to the aquifer, and they hold water as long as the aquifer is full. But as soon as the aquifer falls from pumping and our usage, then they dry out really quickly. This is different than the eastern part of the county and out in the national forest. That's all a drainage system, and everything in there fills up and runs off into St. Sopchoppy River, Occoquan River, Black Creek, all those systems. And these, they perched on top of the soil, and when the aquifer drops, they go right into the aquifer. So they're just above ground storage for our aquifer system. Now, for the county, I was out this weekend in St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge. We had over 1,000 visitors out there this weekend. I couldn't believe how many people were there from out of state. They're coming there because they want to experience these kind of views. They want us to come out and see the wildlife that occurs in national wildlife refuges and in communities where they have good protection over what happens to the landscape. And what people don't recognize is, you know, these guys are very, very opportunistic. They will go wherever the food is and take advantage of it. And what happens is that when they're nesting, they pick ponds that have water underneath them because they want the gators to protect their nest from the raccoons and predators that come along. Now, once they do that, okay, they go out and forage from there out into these soils. Now, out in the national forest, those ponds drain, and then they hold water and they have to dry from evapotranspiration. In the St. Mark's, you know, in the St. Mark's soils area, they dry very quickly when the aquifer draws. So what that means is that you have these two different communities of amphibians that live in those two different types of ponds. And in those two types of ponds, the ones out in the forest, they have fish, they have that community. Those ones up on the uplands, they don't have fish, they have a different community. And those birds and their nesting all depends on the events that occur on those upland ponds where everything dries up. The amphibians in those ponds are concentrated down to small levels, and the birds are able to exploit it. And that's how you get large populations, and that's what we need that's why you need to protect these wetlands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Hugh Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Hugh Taylor. I live at Martin Luther King Road. I don't have much. Two things. Don't do anything until the referendum. And remember that 5,500 plus people is an election this year or 2 years from now. Thank you.
Okay, our next citizen is going to be David Damon.
David Damon. Thank you, Commissioners. One thing we've heard a lot about is property rights having to do with this, and that seems to be the battle cry for the opposition dealing with the wetlands. One thing I want to remind people is, if this BoCC continues down this road, that if you buy property in Wakulla County, it's buyer beware, because you have no property rights. You can buy and your neighbor can go and fill his wetlands, his isolated wetlands, and flood you out, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So when you talk about property rights, it's you four guys that are taking them away from potential buyers in Wakulla County. You're hurting the real estate market. There's no protection in these neighborhoods. They can get flooded out. So this battle cry for property rights is ridiculous, because you're taking them away by doing this, by not protecting the people's values of their property. They buy this property and think there's some protection. Their neighbor fills in and then they're flooded out, so they have to raise their property, and it goes on and on. That's not right. People should be able to spend the money, build a house, and expect to be protected. So I urge you to delay any action on this until after November and let the people choose. The people are smart. Somebody pointed that out tonight. They can choose. They have a right to choose. Our ancestors fought for that right. My father was in the Atlantic with torpedoes flying around for that right to where we can vote on something. As hard as you've tried to take it away, that's what they fought for. And we deserve that right, and you don't deserve to be putting us in this position, this irresponsible position that you're going to put us in by going down this road. And you know what you're doing, and you know you're setting us up, and you're just helping out a handful of buddies. That's all this is about. Thank you.
Next citizen is Charles Hickman.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Charles Hickman, 528 Hickorywood Drive. There's three adjectives that come to mind that through the years of being in business and seeing things that go on in business, and that are dumb, dumber, and stupid. And those are three classifications that I've always kept in the back of my mind to say, okay, what is my decision and which category is it going to fall in? I want to thank Chuck Hess for and to me it was somewhat enlightening, and I've looked at the soil structure and those maps before, but I didn't understand the division, and so that was rather enlightening to me. I hope some of you took a hard look at that too, because I sat in the Planning and Zoning Board meeting when it was asked of Louis, what is your scientific fact for making this presentation to this board? There was none. None. I guess it just was grabbed out of the air and thrown on your desk. To me, that's not even being sensible. Someone needs to dig into it a little bit. And the other thing that comes to mind is that whenever these rules, when this plan, when all the verbiage was put together, it was passed on more or less by DEP. They had an opportunity to review it. The committee carried it up to them and said, take a look at this and tell us what the shortfalls are. They did just that, and your county attorney sat there in the meeting. If you're not enlightened to that fact, then you should be. They passed on it. Then what you do? You turn right around and you sent your plan with revisions to it back to the same people. What do you think they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you, leave it alone. Because they had already carried it all the way through. I mean, detailed. They had highlighted sections that would be in violation of federal law and state law. So I've heard a lot of misconceptions about how this was established. And gentlemen, you have to pick which category you fall in. I know which category I'd put some of you in, but I don't know. I just throw up my hands. I heard it said today that it doesn't make any difference how much scientific fact is placed in front of you. You won't listen.
The next citizen is Mr. Robert Roddenberry.
I won't take much of your time. I'm Robert Roddenberry, Curtis Mill Road, Sopchoppy. I want to commend this commission for having the backbone to stand up for the private citizens' rights. I think all of you all know, as well as most of us, this is a very, very small part of a much larger agenda. I don't know of anybody, any landowner that wants to harm the wetlands. I think most of us are responsible. I know on my place, we would never harm them. And at a time when we're regulated to death, I think it took a lot of backbone for y'all to do this, and I want to commend you.
Thank you. Our next citizen is Sandy Tedder.
I'm Sandy Tedder, Sopchoppy, Florida, and I think that the state's most valuable natural resource is our water, and we do have an abundance of clean water, but it's being degraded. I think our county's most valuable natural resource is our water, and we should do everything we can to keep it clean and protect it. That is what so many people around the world are trying to do is keep their water clean. Most of them are trying to clean it up because they haven't had the foresight to keep it clean. They're trying to spend billions of money. They're having to spend a pot full of money in South Florida. We've seen what not protecting our water resources has done. We know what happens. We see South Florida. We see what DEP has done to protect South Florida. They didn't. They let it go downhill. Their water is dirty. Their fishing is bad. I think we have the opportunity to make a change up here for the better and to put in more protections. Even DEP themselves has said to the county that our county ordinance, our comp plan, affords a better way to protect our natural resources, our water, than DEP can provide. And I think that protection is the main point that we should be looking at and not going backward. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next citizen is Ron Pasaki.
Thank you, Commissioners. First of all, I just wanted to get rid of this idea that wetlands and the ordinance is against property rights. Everything this board does, in a sense, is against property rights. I chair the Code Enforcement Board, and I'd welcome any of you to come to a meeting. What we get are people that come up there that have violated one of your ordinances. And they call us communists, socialists, same thing that Ralph, we see on your website, or Mr. Roddenberry accuses us of. But all we're doing is enforcing the ordinances that you put together. When you zone a property residential, and somebody decides that he wants to build a car repair facility, and he's cited for violating that, he comes up and calls us communists. It's my property. I ought to be able to do whatever I want to do. That's not true. So I would forget the idea of everything you do is it's in support of property rights. We heard very early from Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Hardin, that they have talked, they have studied, they've evaluated DEP, the Water Management District, and they're much better to handle the wetlands than Wakulla counties. They've got the expertise, the staff. We don't, and they can do a better job. So the county submitted to DEO your request, which you're looking at tonight. What did the Water Management District say, and what did DEP say? They said, we are encouraging more and more local governments to have ordinances like yours. We think wetlands are extremely important and precious. Wakulla County especially, with 60% of the county being in wetlands, we think it's precious. We encourage you to keep exactly what you have. And basically, because we couldn't do it anywhere near as well as you could do it, because our regulations aren't as good as yours are. Now, I think Commissioner Thomas asked Deputy Secretary Littlejohn, well, if we go ahead with this, would you file a challenge to it? And he said, no. Well, that's the answer. Yeah, they're not going to. Why? Because under Governor Scott, they don't enforce any of the regulations. Talking again today, would you challenge it? Probably not. But we've had conversations with them. You've seen the responses. I sent you a letter this last couple of days which quoted verbatim sections out of their letters to you that are basically pleading with you to keep what you've got. I spoke with Suzanne Ray as late as 4 o'clock today. Commissioner Merritt had heard that maybe that letter had been withdrawn. Absolutely not. They stand by the letter that was sent back to Louis, and you've got it. One just final thing. As of now, we have turned in 3,104 petitions. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Jack Rudlow.
My name is Chris Patella Rudlow. That is the name, that the Smithsonian Institution has named a stinging jellyfish after, that I found in Madagascar 50 years ago. Some people say I sting developers. We're trying to protect the wetlands. Gentlemen, I want to thank you because of your stand that I have been nominated for a National Wetlands Award, which is probably one of the most prestigious things that may have ever happened to me out of Washington, D.C. I am one of 5 finalists. And because of your actions, I've been able to demonstrate that the desperate need in this Wakulla County, through the ignorance and the short-sightedness and the greed that 4 of you have shown in repealing a perfectly good wetlands, makes it one of the hot spots in the country, makes it worthwhile to fight. So Chris Patella-Rudlow will be here to sting and to fight and to do whatever. However, I want to make this perfectly clear to a lot of people. I do not intend to run for county commissioner. Thank you.
All right. Okay, our next citizen is Chris Russell.
It's a tough act to follow right there. How long do we have to speak?
3 minutes.
Okay. First of all, thank you for doing that, Chairman Harden. You said early on, even if it was a controversial issue, you'd allow the citizens the full 3 minutes. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
Thank you for sticking your word on that. I see Chief Morgan's here. When I respond to a hazmat response, I gauge the situation. I was on train derailment recently. That's where I've been. I've been spending more time with DEP than I have my own family, doing regulations and whatnot, but that's a side story. When I don't know the hazard, when I'm looking at it and I'm sizing up, I'm using science, I'm going to use the personal protection that's going to protect me the best, be it a moon suit with SCBA. But as I get to know it, I adjust accordingly. I might be like this, addressing the situation. It's gotten to a point where I can handle it. That's how these wetlands are, these lots. Each one is not the same. We need to use sound science. We need to look at it individually. I am for wetland protection, but let's look at it. Let's not get an arbitrary number. A half mile is a great number. It just won't work. We heard that Secretary John says they're not going to challenge it. I guess that takes DEP off the table. I was at a meeting where their deputy district director said that they had plenty of staff enforcement. Let's put the liability on the state. Let's not have it on us. Let's watch how it goes out. I think that we need to be looking at a way to allow those that want to move forward with do conservation easements the opportunity to have a tax break. There's a lot of good-hearted people that want to protect the wetlands, and they want to do it on their property, and they should be benefited by that. Let's find a way to do that. Let's encourage that as one step right there. I'd like to congratulate the WWA. If you got your petitions, thank you for using the system in place. That is great. That's the first beta test on that. It's good to see it went forward. Apparently 30% is an achievable number. Thanks for allowing us to watch their process. Last but not least, I'd like to point out that if I have to get a permit from DEP, they provide the delineation. If I have to get a permit from the county, I have to go hire someone else to do it. It's a costly expense for me to do business down here if I'm doing that. I protect wetlands. I'm all for it. My job is in the environmental field. My degree is in the environmental field. I just want us to use common sense. Let's not just cut out numbers and move forward. Let's look at these strategically. Every lot's not the same. That's why DEP has a scaling system for what they have for their setbacks. They don't say an arbitrary number. They scale it to the lot at hand. We should be looking at the same if we're going to have ordinance in this county. Thanks for putting up with us tonight. Good luck. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next citizen is Mr. Vic Lambu.
Sorry. Leg went to sleep.
You all right?
I'm sorry, there's been some very eloquent speakers, and I don't know how to really say what they've said so eloquently. You're making a mistake. You need to listen to what the citizens do. You shouldn't be rushing in this. Chuck Hess did an elegant job of talking about the isolated wetlands, and he is so right. Now, I've spent my life at the university and EPA as dealing with aquatics, ecology, wetlands specifically. And when you're talking about taking away the protection, the buffer zones, I would like, we ought to have a workshop. These are the very valuable things that protect it. I could go on very technically for an hour or so talking about why you need that. But you're all rushing into this without any basis. You haven't even had a workshop on it. Listen to the people, what they say out there. You should not do what you're trying to do. You shouldn't be ramming this down people's throats. You should be waiting to see what they say, what their opinions are. They are the citizens here that have to live with it. Thank you.
Next citizen, Mr. Bob Danzig.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I think most of you know that I'm for this. Hope it moves forward, and I think it'll be a good thing. Now, they talked about voting and the right to vote, and I've said this before, maybe the last time I was up here. We had a vote, and the people, Mr. Lambeau, I respect greatly, but he said it got we're ramming something down some people's throat. Well, let me tell you, the wetlands ordinance got rammed down our throat, and we went and did something about it. We went and elected some commissioners that would stand up for our rights. So that works both ways. Now, we appreciate what you're doing. Well, I hope you do. I think it's, and it was said one time that's what y'all ran on, and it is. I helped I helped all of you, actually, the four of you, as best I could, and that was in the mix. So the people have voted. Now I don't know what they'll do in November. If they have the right amount of petitions, then so be it. I'm like Chris, great, that's good. But I get tired of hearing about the people voting or not getting a chance to vote. They voted y'all in office. I think one of the most important things is DEO came back with their response and said that they were fine with it. There wasn't a problem, that we could move forward. That's the most important thing that can be said here all night, is they are going to go and be on board with it. And I read the reports of the other state agencies, and I'm going to be honest with you, they weren't nearly as bad as what I was told they were once I got a chance to read them. I waited to read them on the county website that puts your agenda out, so that I know I'd be getting the right one. They weren't. I think there was one of them that was negative, but they weren't nearly as bad as what the public's been told that they were. I just want to tell the people that take the chance to read them. They're not nearly as bad as what you've been told. With all that being said, I want to tell a little story if I have time. I'll make this quick, I hope. I was in Tallahassee, and I was talking to a guy, and he found out I was from Crawfordville. He said, "That's Wakulla County, right?" I said, "It is." He said, "What in the world are y'all doing down there, and who's running the show?" I said, "I don't know. What do you mean exactly?" He said, and he told me he worked with the state, let's just call it that, and that there was a group of people down here that was running the state down, that was saying that the state didn't have the ability to do their job, that the state didn't have the resources, didn't have the will, didn't have the ability to do their job. So there's at least one guy that was reasonably offended by what's been said about the state, and they did it here tonight. They said right here at this podium and said basically how the state couldn't do their job. Well, we're going to get a bad reputation, but the problem is it's going to be all of us that get a bad reputation, not just those people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Dana Peck.
Dana Peck, 2481 Surf Road. I'm all for common sense, but common sense dictates that you do not eliminate wetlands buffers to look at them, study them, and make them even better. Now back to this. I think when you refuse to put the wetlands issue on the ballot, you probably wish that that would be it and the wetlands would be done with. I think you've received unintended consequences from that decision, because we have seen since October, when we were really out collecting petitions, began our petitions, this has galvanized a huge part of the county, and volunteers have come, a legion of volunteers have come to go door to door, to be in places to collect petitions, to do the American thing and put this on the ballot. And this is now that we have collected more than 6,000 petitions. We have copied and recorded 3,000 some odd of them, but collected more than 6,000, which we are recording before we turn them in. This is an unparalleled feat in this county. Perhaps in the state, since we have a threshold for petitions that's 3 times higher than any other county. But I want to tell you what happened as I knocked on doors, and I knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors. I had people say, why are those people doing this? And by those people, they meant the gang of 4 here. And I'd say, well, I think you ought to just ask them. And then they'd say, well, what do those people do? And I said, well, now, one of them's a builder, and you know how those pesky wetlands get in the way of building and making a profit. And then I'd say, one of them's a land developer, and you know how those pesky wetlands get in the way of land development, and so people can make a profit. And then I said, one of them does something with mortgages. I'm not going to be sure there are going to be many mortgages here if the wetlands protections go away, because people aren't going to be able to sell their houses because of the flood insurance and the flooding, and they're not going to be able to build houses because of the flood insurance and the flooding. And if we don't keep the wetlands going, we're not going to have good water. Of course, we don't have it anyway. We're not going to have enough water, and we're not going to have those little fishies and deers that everybody come down here to enjoy. And the other one, what does he do? He says this is for property rights. And people have said, well, that guy next door can't flood my property. I got the right to have not flooded property. And I'd say, yes, you're right. So let your commissioners know. And I hope they do let you know in the way they know they can let you know. But here's the question. The state agencies, if you read carefully, have told you to keep these buffers, because they are vital to the state of Florida and they are vital to Wakulla County. Every bit of science and logic dictates that these wetlands are for prosperity, for everybody's prosperity, instead of the prosperity of just a few of you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Beck. Okay, the next citizen is, and the final citizen on this issue is Mr. Rick Groves.
Thank you. Rick Groves, Spring River Lane. The buffer, the 35-foot buffer line cuts right through the middle of my house. I cannot even put a 2-foot deck extension on the back of my house because of that. I can't get a permit. So it does affect me adversely, and so I appreciate the attempt to at least adjust the wetlands ordinance so that people like me could use their property that they're being taxed on. I'm also requesting, I guess, a little clarification on what the process is tonight and in the future. Is this the last vote? Is there another vote after this to get rid of other wetland ordinances that are outside of the thing? And I would request that that be done tonight so that we can get past this or as fast as we can to get this over with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's our final citizen. I'm going to open it up to discussion among the commissioners.
I got a couple questions for Louis. I guess I kind of feel like Howard did at the animal control workshop, if you were here. Is anybody talking about filling in wetlands?
No, this is just affecting the buffers.
I told Howard now you know how I felt. So there's nobody suggesting we fill in any wetlands, or even allow people to fill in wetlands to flood their neighbor or anything like that.
That's correct. They're still
Just
governed by
to be
state
sure
law.
what we're talking about here. Are we removing any of the protections from car speakers? A citizen had a slide showing a sink or something. Are we taking away any of the setbacks that range from 50 to 500 or 300 feet? Are we removing any of those setbacks?
No, not a car speaker.
Just wanted to be clear about that, too. Howard, I talked the other night about if you would entertain the idea of allowing a variance inside the 35-foot if that referendum passed, remember? And you said maybe under a certain circumstance. And I understand your position.
I said the devil is in the details.
Correct. But that
Then
meant,
I said, yes, the devil is in the details.
okay, but that meant there was a possibility then for possibly allowing a variance for whatever reason.
No.
Okay. Anyway, if we don't do this, the major problem I've had with the comp plan is that it doesn't even allow a variance in that 35-foot. That gentleman right there, no matter what he did, could not get a variance inside the 35 feet. And anybody that's been around long enough knows that's been my issue the whole time. And I'm presented, that's why I had suggested allowing variances, but the point we're at right now, the time for compromise is gone. That was months ago. The choice I'm presented with right now is get rid of all of it or keep it the way it is. And I'm definitely not going to keep it the way it is. Just one more or two more points real quick. Have we violated any state or federal laws? I heard that mentioned too. If we pass this, are we violating state or federal laws?
No.
Okay, thank you for that. And I like what Chris Russell had said. In fact, the letter from the Game and Fish Commission encouraged us to form some sort of voluntary protection program. They said they had some sort of land protection program that they could help us establish that with. Huh? Landowner assistance program. That's exactly right. That came directly from the Game and Freshwater Fish Commission. So that ties in pretty good with what Chris had said. None of the letters really have specifics. They're like more general statements. Wetlands are important. Buffers are important. A few of the letters say that, and they didn't really give any specifics. And in fact, a lot of them recommended we have variance procedures for whatever buffer zones we have, if we have any. The comp plan, as it sits today, went over this back and forth with Heather 100 times, does not allow variances. That's all I can say.
Ralph?
I'm good.
Howard? Anything?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to make some comments on misstatements, and then we have a person that got up tonight and said that he doesn't know of anyone that would harm a wetland. Incredible. Incredible when we have had major actions by state agencies in the past for people destroying major wetland bodies. Incredible. We all know of destruction of wetlands. I don't think there's a commissioner sitting on this board that doesn't know of a destruction of wetlands.
I do not.
You don't?
No.
Not in Panacea?
No.
Incredible. Incredible.
There's a house at Levi Bay that might be a good candidate.
There's a house at Levi Bay that is not a good candidate, Mr. Harden, because it falls outside of the wetlands ordinance, and thank you for the smirk.
Yes, an aerial picture
Thank you.
would prove me right, Commissioner Kessler.
The aerial would prove you wrong, Mr. Harden. Shame on you. And I invite you to pursue that, by the way.
Yes.
I invite you to pursue it. This comes before us with a recommendation from Planning and Zoning to approve. And I discussed with the Director of Planning and Zoning, and he said in order for the board to address the wetlands ordinance as it has voted to so address, it needs first to address the comp plan, and that's his reason for putting it forward as for approval, as I understand it. Is that correct, Mr. Cerna?
Yes, that is correct. In order to address especially the buffer issues in the 35 feet, then we have to address the comp plan.
Right. But also, as a planning and zoning director who has spoken up in the past in both private and public meeting, he is not in favor of all that is taking place right now, as all of the strike-throughs are being designated to be removed. Also in those strike-throughs, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cerna, is verbiage that says, that verbiage that pertains to not filling in wetlands is being struck. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I'd expressed some concern early on that there's some language in there that the comp plan has about conditions that the board has to find for filling of wetlands, and that is being struck.
I think he struck it, though, not to make it legal, but because it was redundant with state regulations. State regulations don't allow you to fill wetlands.
And I accept the redundancy, And I ask, what is wrong with being redundant and holding in our own comp plan wording that says you will not fill in wetlands under these conditions? What is wrong with that redundancy? What is the rush to take this out?
I think, Howard, probably what it was, let me, if I could, please. You remember do you remember the power company that came in with a site plan because they wanted to put a transfer station, I think in St. Mark somewhere? You remember that site plan? They had wetland impacts. They had to fill in some wetlands, and they had to mitigate for that because that was the only way they could put that power substation there. If he didn't eliminate that language, right, then they couldn't have done that.
Let me try to continue with my portion of the thing, because I don't think I interrupted you, at least the best of my memory.
Just trying to help.
The state will do the job. The state has gutted the agencies that are supposed to be doing the job. The state has removed some of our most proficient and expert staff and replaced them with lesser. And the state has a track record which I don't think anyone is very happy with. The state, in their letters, supports Wakulla's wetlands buffers. They suggest that we keep them. It's clear. They're not vague in that. They say our protection of the wetlands is better than what the state standard is. And rightfully so. And in your county, it's appropriate to have that. That's how I read it. And that's how that map, you know, it's unfortunate that most of the private land in our county, fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, is in that portion that Mr. Chuck Hess showed in that green area. If it was a flip-flop, we wouldn't be probably having this discussion now. But that's the way it is. And what the state, as I read it, is saying, and I think it's clear, that they encourage us to keep those wetland buffers. We made a commitment to have those 75-foot buffers. They're in the BMAP process. We have a commitment to that process. We're going back on our word. You know, this is one board that came in place and said, okay, after 5 months, let's get rid of this wetlands ordinance. And I don't remember all of the people running on get rid of the wetlands ordinance, but certainly some have. Certainly some did. But not all that are claiming that they did. And I think all the citizens of this county are asking the board, and the demonstration by signing that petition, is they want those wetlands protected, and they want to have local protection. They don't want to leave it in the hands of the state. So, as far as people not wanting to harm the wetlands, look at Panacea. Look at Panacea. I guess I repeat myself, but look at Panacea. And you'll find multiple instances of violations of wetlands, some of which have actually been brought up at state level. So I know, as some of in the audience feel, it may be futile, but I ask this board to reconsider. What's the rush? This vote can be put off. Let's see how the vote is with the citizens. And I think that some of you have mentioned even at the workshop that you like to listen to the citizens, but I guess you pick and choose. Listen to the citizens at the workshop on that issue, but don't listen to the citizens on the wetlands issue. No big government. We don't want big government, but now we don't want little government on a wetlands issue. Pick and choose. Thank you.
Okay. One thing I want to ask Heather, if a property owner does something on their property that infringes upon the rights of another property owner, regardless of what it is, isn't there a lot of civil law already in place that that covers a lot of that?
There's a no-ride certification, if I could. I've done a few of these, and
You
refused
know?
to do a few of them, too. You can't fill in floodplain area with fill if it adversely affects your neighbor. It's called a no-ride certification. You gotta have an engineer certify it that it's not flooding.
Well, the reason I want to bring it up is that's one of the things that are repeatedly brought up, that the reason for keeping the buffers is to keep one property owner from doing something that's going to affect the other. But there's civil laws and there's a civil process in place that if one property owner infringes the rights of another, that property owner already has an avenue through the civil process if he hires an attorney to address that issue. And if a civil court determines that there was something wrong done, there's penalties that are already in place to do that. That's beyond us here. The other thing that I want to address is there's one thing that's it was misspoken tonight. It's a misstatement. It continues to be misspoken. On WCTV News' website today, there's an article that says Wakulla Wetlands Alliance beats that deadline for collecting voter petitions. I looked and seen, and the article was actually written by the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance, sent to the news. In here, it keeps mentioning the 5,550 verified petitions. It was referred to in here, and it was referred to at night as if every single one of those 5,550 people were well informed and well versed and knew what they were signing. And I don't agree with that at all. I believe a lot of the people those are just simply names on paper, a lot of them. I believe a lot of citizens who signed that, they have no understanding at all what it was, what the issue is. I know this for a fact because at many of the festivals, I was close enough nearby, and even at one thing that the Wetlands Alliance had a tent right next to the one I had. I listened myself. The speech that was being given, citizens were being given just as little information as possible, and as soon as they had their name on a piece of paper, they was on chasing another name. There's many citizens that have signed that do not understand what it is they signed, and I've seen it, I heard it with my own ears, and I stick by that. That is a misstatement. It's a misperception that every single one of those citizens that signed a petition is fully informed. That's just not true, and I can back it up. And I just think that needs to really be put out there to people. Just because someone signed this petition, that doesn't mean that that's the way they're going to vote. That doesn't mean that that's their view. Many citizens have no understanding at all. Many citizens signed that petition because they was told that a gang of four was trying to take away their voting rights. The wetlands was never even mentioned to many of them, and the reason that was told again and again because it was seen early on that that's all they had to say and somebody would sign their name. Many citizens who signed that petition have no understanding at all what it is they signed. I fully understand what it is they signed, and that's why tonight that I'm going to hold to the same position that I have continued to hold on, and I'm going to be voting against this because I fully understand this situation.
Let me read, if I could, Richard, a part that we're not striking, that it's in the comp plan. We're not striking this. Development may be allowed within the 1% chance floodplain where the applicant can show through accepted engineering practice that such development will not adversely impact the natural function, water quality, or water quantity of the affected floodplain. Post-development runoff shall not exceed pre-development discharge rates. We're not taking that out. That's staying in there. It's not being stricken.
And I understand that there is verbiage that remains in there, and that's what will make the wetlands ordinance by petition drive successful.
We have FEMA has just put a new boundary into our county as opposed to insurance rates. And that's probably increased the amount of buffer on the wetlands. It's not actually a buffer, but it will be a buffer as we go forward because so many people will not be able to build within that insurance boundary because it now is going to be much more difficult. If you build within the wetlands boundary or within the FEMA boundary, which was and has been expanded, your insurance rates are going to go through the roof. So we have another protection. It's a monetary protection. But our county has the Apalachicola National Forest. It has the St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge. It has the state of Florida forest. And now we have FEMA. And we do have a wetland boundary. We have a wetland boundary of 25 feet. Doubling that, does that double the protection? Probably nobody could say that that doubles it. It might increase it a little bit, but to just say that you're going to double the boundary and you're going to double the protection, there's no science on that. So, but this new FEMA, when you get your new insurance bills, when this FEMA thing comes about, that's going to be a real buffer. I had FEMA just come through a lot of my stuff, and it's definitely a buffer, because I can't use that property anymore. So I got what you call a reverse financial buffer, and I can live with it.
Louis, what's the setback from an open body of water that's in the county code and is going to stay in the county code?
It's 50 feet.
Thank you. That's not changing.
And what's the setback from the marsh?
Well, from a wetland,
Yeah.
if it's not a water body, then there is no setback without the 75-foot buffer.
Thank you.
Except for state regulations.
Except for state regulations. Of course, there's karst and springs setbacks as well.
So if I can ask Mr. Cerna one other question. According to your reading, if a person with a single lot was to construct a house, what would be the setbacks provided by the state from a wetland?
What kind of wetland?
One lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, assuming single family, I don't think there would be a buffer.
Thank you.
The 50-foot setback that's from the mean high water line, correct?
Is it also water bodies? Is
Okay.
it other lakes or anything? I thought it was lakes. Yeah, it would be lakes as well,
So
but yeah,
it's
mean
from
high
the
water.
mean high water line, which could be tidally influenced, of course.
Well, take it out of the tide and bring it into just isolated wetland. Okay? One individual lot, not a subdivision of 4 or more, but one individual lot. What's the state setbacks?
Yeah, you had asked about state setbacks, so yeah,
Yes.
that would be, I don't think there is a setback. They don't have a hard and fast setback, as you know.
I was told multiple times by the state agency, by the person who wrote that letter, that there are none.
Yeah, I believe that's correct for single
If
family.
there's development less than 4.
And that's because it's being a single-family dwelling?
That's correct. It would be exempt.
Yeah.
It'd be exempt, especially if it's not part of a larger development. But there's also provision in the state statute that if you're doing development in the uplands and you have 0 wetlands on your property whatsoever, 0, but you're causing an adverse impact to wetlands downstream, you are still required to permit that. And so there are many areas where state regulations do exceed Wakulla County regulations.
And I agree with that single-family dwelling exemption personally. I know we don't agree on that, but I'm
That-
fine with it.
Right, and that's part of what's going on
I agree.
right now.
If we don't have any more discussion, we'll bring the motion to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
As amended.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. It was item number 7, wasn't it?
We've missed
Okay, hold on a second.
awards.
wait, I thought...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're going to back up and we're going to have now awards and presentations.
I'd like to ask Mr. Ed Bremner to come up and speak on behalf of the Wakulla Swine Show.
I'd like to speak on something I don't think there's any controversy about.
Good.
Be the first time tonight.
Saturday morning, beginning around 9 o'clock, out at the Livestock Pavilion here in Wakulla County, there's going to be the 48th Annual Wakulla County Swine Show. And if you're not familiar with the Swine Show, each October, September time frame, kids between the age of 6 and 18 get a pig, and they begin to raise that pig, and they learn numerous life lessons through this. Things like being responsible for another living thing. Things don't just happen that they're made to happen. They learn basic economics. They learn basic husbandry. They gain confidence that comes from a long-term project. Well, this show, it begins at 9 o'clock with a showmanship where these kids will get in the ring based upon their age, and they'll actually show their hog to a judge, and actually the kid is being judged on his showmanship skills. And the judge asks questions, these sorts of things. Following this, then the hogs will be separated based on weight into several classes, and the best hog in each class will be chosen, and then each of the winners from each of the classes of hogs will come together, and they will choose a grand and reserve champion, and whichever kid, and each of these kids have found a sponsor in the community to sponsor their hog, but the winning hogs, the champion and grand champion, they receive a large prize. And it's a great thing to come out and watch these kids between the ages of 6 and 18. Actually, I don't know of any 18-year-olds, but there's a lot of 8 and 9, 10-year-old kids out there raising these hogs and showing these hogs. It's a lot of fun. I encourage everybody to come out Saturday. There'll be a raffle. You can buy raffle tickets from the kids if they're trying to raise money. The prizes include things like a whole processed hog, 10 pounds. That's a lot of pork, by the way. 10 pounds of Bradley sausage, a $50 Ashley's Feed gift certificate, a $50 Gulf Coast Lumber gift certificate, Elizabeth Carter photography photo session, personalized license plate from Auto Trim, a Super Lube gift certificate, an Evolution Day Spa gift certificate, Coastal Restaurant from Panacea gift certificate, an $80 gift certificate toward a pair of boots from Sundance, a case of cane syrup from Boss Farms, and then possibly the best is there's a barbecue cook-off that will be judged at 11, and lunch will be served beginning around noon at $7 each. I think each of our commissioners have been invited to serve this lunch, and I know that in the past they've done that, and I know that the judges out there and the sheriffs out there serving the lunch. It's a great time for everyone to come out, watch kids in the community who have accomplished something over the last several months, and this will be the culmination of that, and I encourage everyone to come out and see this. Support our kids.
Thank you.
Would the barbecue be one of the hogs that were in the show?
No.
Okay.
No.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, one that came in last place.
Okay, we had a motion and a second for the consent agenda, and we voted, I think, on that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, it was number 7 that was pulled.
Yes, do you want me, Dr. Kessler? You want me
Yes,
to-
please.
Okay. This agenda item requests board approval of a billing agreement between Panacea Area Water System and the Wakulla County for wastewater services. What this encompasses, this is our agreement just like we have at Sop Choppy for Sop Choppy and Paws. They will actually do our wastewater billing and collections for us. It's the same agreement in essence that we had with the city of Sop Choppy. Prior to this, Paws was paying, we were paying Paws $2.75 per customer. We've negotiated that down to $2.50 per customer,
Motion to
and that's
approve.
where they're the same.
We have a motion made and second. We don't have any citizens speaking on it. Do we have any more discussion amongst commissioners?
So in summary, Mr. Edwards, you consider this a good deal for the county?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you.
What's next?
Okay, moving on to general business.
Yes, the first general business item is request board approval of an agreement for mowing, solid waste collection, property maintenance, and improvement services with Wakulla County Sheriff's Office.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, have a motion made and second. I've got one citizen to speak on it, Mr. Vic Lambu.
I'm going to pass, thank you.
You gonna pass? Okay. Before we have any discussion, David, is there any more you wanted to say in the explanation?
Just to let you know that we test everything, and this was one of the things that we did test. We actually put an ITB out for services, for landscape services, to make sure that, number one, we had the possibility of moving away from this agreement if it didn't make sense, but come to find out after receiving our bids, et cetera, we're actually getting a good deal for the county and also as a good deal for the WCSO. So we tested it with the private market and brought it back, and we're ready to move forward with this.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve.
All in favor for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Just one, just to clear that up, could you also reject all bids of the of the ITB that you put out?
Make a motion to reject all previously received bids.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
All
you,
opposed?
Heather.
Okay, next you said, David, you was having a legislative update?
Yes, first let me get through with this one piece of business, and then we'll grab the legislative update. This agenda item request you've got is add-on item that you have. This request board approval to purchase asphalt millings from C.W. Roberts and approve to waive the county purchasing policy. We were notified Friday afternoon that C.W. Roberts, they're milling, they have the job at City of Tallahassee's airport, at Tallahassee Airport, and they're milling the runways, and they have a mountain of millings that are there. We'd like to, they let us know that we could buy it for $100 a load.
Really?
Yes. So therefore, we feel like we need to jump on it. Sorry for the late notice, but we didn't find out until Friday at
Motion to
lunchtime.
approve, that's dirt cheap.
I second.
Okay, motion made and second.
How many loads you gonna buy?
100 loads.
All in favor?
Wait,
Hold on, back up. How many, David, how many
100
loads?
loads.
What's it normally cost? $500 or $600 a load.
So we're getting it for $100 a load when...
Yes, and our intent is to, roads around the Smith Creek, Spring Creek, excuse me, Randy, Commissioner Merritt, Spring Creek, as well as the Shell Point area. We have a couple of roads in there, quite a few roads that we need to stabilize. And what that'll actually able to do is, once we put this down, is we'll be able to move not have our graders go in there as often, so therefore it will save us money now and in the long term. We'll still have to grade them because there will be potholes from time to time come in, but it will stabilize a number of roads in that area that need stabilization.
It's great stuff.
Yes,
I mean,
it's great stuff.
How much is that? $100?
$5 a ton.
And how many? What's the total dollar figure you're going to spend?
$10,000.
Why don't you buy 200 loads?
We'll come back to you.
Wait, I mean, that stuff's like gold.
Yeah, we've got the money. We just thought we'd start off with this and we'll see. I'm very conservative.
But at that price, I mean,
that's a great price.
That is literally a fifth of what it usually costs. A fifth or a sixth.
Yeah, it's
and
a
that
great
stuff
price.
It's great.
So, Kessler.
Thank you. So what's the plan? You've got 100 trucks coming down. We have 6 trucks to move it, 3 trucks to move it.
We're going to move it with our trucks.
Which is how many trucks?
You're going to about 3 trucks. You're going to put on the 3 trucks.
Right. And so are we going to move it down to like one spot?
No, sir. We're going to place it in place. That way, it's cheap, much cheaper for us.
Is that?
Well, y'all changed on me.
Excuse
me, they changed on me.
Yeah.
I thought they were not going. I thought they were going to place it direct. So sorry about that.
We'll be stockpiling at Trice Lane, and as the projects come up, we'll move it again, because the cycle time with just 3 trucks would be too long from Tallahassee Airport. Our graders and our men would be waiting between the cycle times of the trucks, so it's cheaper, it's easier and more efficient to stockpile at Trice Lane.
Okay.
And if you do have the money, if you can still get it for that price, I would get as much as you can, because we can use it for years and years to come.
It's good stuff.
Do we have any more discussion? All in favor for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Next item is on general business is I'd ask Cherie Keeler to please come forward, and she's going to give you a brief update on our legislative actions and a grant update as well. Grants update.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you commissioners for approving the legislative program and priorities at your August 5th board meeting last year. It's been a great roadmap, and it represents our county very well, all of our needs and all the diverse things that are going on. It's really helped me a lot when I review legislation and look at grants and funding opportunities to be able to move forward with that on a day-to-day basis. First of all, legislative committee meetings have been going on since September, and they'll continue through April 22nd. The regular session begins March 4th, and hopefully it will end on time, which is May 2nd. To date, over 1,000 bills have been filed. This does not include claims bills and joint resolutions. They move in a separate path. As you recall, our local delegation, that Senator Mumford and Representative Beshears was here in January. It was a very well-attended meeting, and we had the opportunity to present 3 of our priorities. As a follow-up to the legislative delegation and you approving the priorities, last week Commissioner Harding, County Administrator Edwards, and myself met with Senator Mumford. We had an opportunity to again go over our priorities in more detail. This week we'll be meeting with Commissioner Thomas will be meeting with us and Representative Beshears to do the same thing, a briefing of our priorities and respond to any of their questions and concerns about our county. Right now, it's been an unusual session. I guess it's because there's so many elections that are statewide that are going on. So bills aren't moving as fast as they normally do. I see them, they're just kind of stalling. And it was noted that a lot of the bills probably won't move until towards the end of the session. Some of the big items that we're looking at and following are always have to do with finance and taxes. There's several bills out there that have to do with community service tax, but none of them are making a lot of movement. There's also a lot of workshops on gaming, but no actual bills have been filed. Another important piece of legislation that's going to be a workshop this Thursday is on springs protection. We're on version 7 of a proposed bill, so we really don't know what's going to be in the final bill when it is filed. I'm continuing to participate in all the Florida Association of Counties lobbyist phone calls every Friday. All of you are welcome to call in if you want the number. It's a really great 1-hour to-the-point meeting. I plan on having a report out by March 4th of all the bills that I'm monitoring and with a status and what they do, and especially if they impact the county, good, bad, or indifferent, so that you'll know what's going on. If any issues come up between now and, all during session, well, I know last year we did some things where we had some of the commissioners went up and spoke, and we coordinated that. I'll do that again this year if anything comes up. And certainly keep you apprised. If you have any questions about the process or a specific bill, just let me know, and I'll research it and get back with you as soon as possible. Now then, moving on to the grants update. The one thing I'd like to say is I'm really proud to announce that Katie is working with me. Katie Taff is working with me. She's already gone. She had kids to take care of. But Katie's now working with me as the county purchasing grants contract coordinator, and she's helping me to develop the grant applications. She's a grant writer in training, and she's working on coordinating the county's purchasing elements as well as tracking all of our contracts. She's building a great database. She's just doing an excellent job, and again, I'm really happy for her to be working with me. One thing I'd like to brief you on is the fact that since October 2013, we've been awarded or notified of up to $5 million in grants that have come into this county. And that does not include the OBBT funding that has been committed and already received. So this is $5 million outside that $2 or $3 million. $1.2 million of that was for the NRCS grants, which were for mitigation efforts on Bostic Pelt, Walker Creek. So far, those have been great results. We got close to $3 million in the NERDA grants, which are going to be for the Mashes sands improvements, Shell Point beach restoration, and we even got a grant for St. Mark's for a boardwalk.
That Shell Point was to pump sand onto the beach, right?
They haven't decided whether they're going to bring sand in or pump it. There's one more public meeting that the BP Trust will have, and then DEP will be getting with the county sometime in April to start talking about the development and in more detail about those projects.
Make it look more like a beach.
Yes. We were notified that we have a $200,000 recreational trails program grant for improvements to Azalea Park. That came in Friday, late Friday afternoon. We're working on that to bring that before you for approval. We were notified that we have a $30,000 FWC grant for Ocotney Bay channel markers. we're hoping to get that agreement before too much longer so we can bring that before you. And yesterday, and I was working yesterday checking emails, we were notified that we received a FEMA mitigation grant, and it's for stormwater improvements in the Panacea Surf Road and Mashes Sands area. And we were really happy about that because it's been on hold for over a year now, and we just got notice that it was the funds were released. So we'll be bringing that before you for approval and to answer any questions about specifics.
And that's a big grant because that'll help fix a lot of our sewer issues down in the Surf Road.
Is that what it was for? Or
It's just part of it, yeah.
One thing, these grants, the mitigation grants, they have to be on your mitigation priority, and they have to be approved by your mitigation team, and we did that over a year ago. So there's just a lot of grants sometimes, especially the federal like this. It's like you put it in and you go through all the processes and procedures, and you may not know anything for 6 months to a year later, but we're still happy we got the money.
The main thing there is you underselling it. Persistence and not saying no, because they give you, the federal government tries to give you every out that they can, and we've been one of the few counties that says no. We want the money. We want the money, and we keep pursuing it, and that's the reason we're getting mitigation grants when other folks aren't.
And what we'll do is, if they come back with a question, we just go back in and we do what we need to do. We correct it and we resubmit it, and it's like we get it. So it is persistence. We're working on 6 additional state grants. These opportunities, we have 6 grants that we've got to have completed within the next 3 months. Some of them require resolutions, and we'll be bringing them back to you. The good thing about our approved legislative package and our adopted infrastructure plan, again, that provides us the roadmap, so when we get grant opportunities, we can look at them, and then we can go to our legislative priorities, and we can go to the adopted infrastructure plan, and then as staff, we're able to take your priorities and fit them into the grant opportunities that come before us. And we're looking at a potential grant for Woolly Park improvements, very similar to what we did at Azalea Park. Another FWC boating grant for channel markers, navigational information at Shell Point, Spring Creek area. There's an FDOT transportation alternative grant for sidewalks. Louie and I were discussing potentially for the Panacea area, since CRPTA has funded the sidewalks for the senior center. We thought this might be another good location.
That was the number 2 priority on the community traffic safety team, by the way, was the Panacea.
Okay, so that's... there's a coastal initiative program that was used last year to put in a kayak canoe launch at St. Mark's that would help connect Panacea and St. Mark's as far as a paddling trail. So there was a possibility that we could use that to put in a couple more kayak canoe launch pads that would further make our blueways more attractive to visitors and give them more stop and start points.
That's one of the things we want to tie in at Woolly Park as a part of our overall program, is tie it to the
blueways.
Blueways.
If we can use the RTP grant for Woolly Park, then that gives us a little bit more flexibility to use the coastal improvement for like maybe Purify Bay or Shell Point, so we, or freshwater, so we can maybe use it for both. And so, if you've got any questions, I sit right next to me.
I tell David every time that I meet with him almost that he should be doing more for grants, that whatever resources he needs, I will support him on grants, because that's a lot of good money, and we don't want to be on the short end of that. We really want to do everything we can to get as many grant applications out there as we can. So I support what you're doing, and
Thank you.
I think David should do more, give you more resources to do that.
Speaking
It's all
of
a balance.
At the Regional Planning Council the other day, and I think I might have mentioned to David, if you ever get to a point where you've got too much to do, there's a grant that you'd like to try to go after but just don't have time or staff, they'll do it for you and not charge the county anything.
That would be good, because there are some DEP water restoration type water projects, and I need to reach out to Katie Kelly anyway. She's the my counterpart for the Northwest Regional, and so perhaps that might be a way she could help us.
Again, this is the Regional Planning Council, but since they've lost most of their government funding, they're looking for ways, and you don't have to bid it because they're already a quasi-governmental entity. You can just say, hey, I found this grant for a fish-eye processing plant, whatever, and I don't feel like they don't have time to do it, so can you do it for us?
And they have the
Consider.
right, they have a
They have
lot
the
of
staff, they
expertise.
have everything.
That sounds
Every third automobile on 98 has 2 kayaks on top of it. It's basically this every third automobile. If you take St. Mark's and you bring them over to Shell Point and you bring them over to Oyster Bay, and then basically at Oyster Bay down to Skipper Bay and across to Panacea and on to Mashissan, we have so many people that are doing kayaks, it's just explosion. And the senior center, I'll put a plug in for the senior center, they have a kayak tournament coming up. That last year they started late, they had 100 entrants, and I think quite possibly this year they'll have 200 people, and most of them from out of town come to fish, but they're in kayaks. So all those places you're talking about would benefit.
And Cherie, I want to thank you for all your efforts and all of the staff's efforts, because if it weren't for your efforts looking at identifying these grants and preparing the paperwork, we wouldn't be getting them. And I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate the staff's efforts for identifying where these grants are at and proceeding them and writing them in such a way that we're being awarded them. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of people involved in grants. I mean, it's like David, Heather, the planning department. The property appraisers helps us do a lot of the maps, and even sometimes our consultants will come in and help us do a lot of things that, just because we have a really good working relationship, because when you don't have the funds to pay for an engineer to come in and do what we do and just go out there and pull things down, it's really about networking and good relationships with people so that we can get the things we need to go in those grants. So it takes a county to get a grant in.
Thank you, Cherie.
Thank you for holding it all together. Thank you.
I have some questions, though.
Cherie.
Oh.
That's all right. Okay. So on the Azalea grant, how much is that for, and what is it
It's
designed to do?
$200,000 from the state, and then we'll put in $200,000 match. We're going to redo the asphalt paths, because I don't know if you've been out there lately.
Yeah.
It's really in bad shape.
Yeah.
We've also got the ability to get new garbage cans, some really nice ones that are a lot more attractive than the ones we have. We're going to redo some of the playground equipment that needs to be replaced and moved, and some new benches. The benches over there are horrible. Some of them are just up on like blocks. We're afraid that people, if they sit in them, they're going to tip over. And a handicap parking spot. The RTP grant doesn't pay for like bathroom rehab or lighting, and
When do you think we'll get the walkway from the senior center over to?
I would say that we should. Is that a LAP project? Those usually, the LAP agreements usually come in the spring after they've been awarded. So they was like July, so it'll probably be April or May of this year.
The people who are handicapped, I talk with them, and they're so proud to have that handicap parking at the park that we put in, and they were really needing that, and they're so proud they could get out of their automobile and visit the park.
Well, we got to stripe it, and Cleve is going to have that stripe this coming up week. He promised me so.
And
So it's a $400,000 project, $200,000 coming from the grant, and $200,000 from the county.
Yes, sir. In kind and match.
Okay, and do we have? You probably do have. I'd like to see the sort of breakdown of where those funds are going to be spent.
Okay, one thing we are working on is we got the grant notification, is we'll be sitting down with DEP and deciding what all the deliverables are and that detail, and we have to come back before the board for that to be accepted. And we also have a really great rendition that was done by one of our landscape architects of what the park will look like, and that's in my office.
Okay. Great.
One of the things that makes this project a little more expensive than the norm would be is If you notice, the existing walkway is dangerous because of the root structures and everything that's flowing through it. So one of the things that we're planning on doing is actually putting a root barrier down, digging a root barrier down. So therefore, when we invest this money, it'll be there for the long term.
So what is a root barrier?
A root barrier is a
Concrete.
no, they got a neoprene root barrier now.
If you're around the pine tree, a pine tree will run its roots out laterally, and it'll push up asphalt. It'll push up concrete.
What it does, it actually will the root will take it and it'll hit the root barrier, and they have to plow it in, and it'll glance off. But what this does is, and then we'll come back and resurface it, grind it up, pave it, and put the surface on it, which is not as expensive as you think. It's a rubberized surface for all the people that walk on there, and the elderly that walk on there. It won't be as hard on their ankles.
So the root barrier is like an inverted curve?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes. Yes.
And then the last question I have is the grant that's going to address the sewer issue on Surf Road. How much is that grant?
I believe it's $500,000. That's rounded up, and that is a 75-25 match. 75 from the feds and 25 from the county.
And we should be able to correct what we need to correct there?
We'll make a huge dent in it. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
What?
Well, manhole, leaking manholes, televising all the, televising everything, doing tests, trying to find out of all the places we got leaks, etc.
Wow.
Can you upgrade the lift stations with that money?
That's what we're planning. There's some lift station upgrades, if I'm not mistaken.
It's mainly for the testing and repairing
Right.
the manhole.
Right.
You got a smoke test too, or just TV to
Smoke and TV.
Well, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
But that'll be in next year's budget. We don't have the 25% match this year and the 1 cent sales tax. That'll have to be next year. But that's we planning on that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And if you have a chance, go over to Walker Creek. We went over and did
I
a
was
site
there.
visit the other day at Shell Point, and it's really nice to see that money at work, that we know that we got 75 cents on the dollar. So usually on weekends, I'm out looking at all these projects because it makes me feel really good to know we're doing this for the county.
I still like at some point, I know I said this before, is to put somewhere people can walk.
I know,
fast
Commissioner
out there
Mayor.
in the canal.
I agree. We'll have a big mullet
People love throwing cats.
tournament out there.
Okay, is there anything else on that? The only commissioner agenda item we had was Commissioner Merritt's, but you've pulled it. So we'll go into county attorney. Heather, you have anything? David?
I want to give you an update on our Shell Point land purchase for the boat ramp. I've updated each one of you. We had a meeting last week that Louis Summer and myself attended with the Shell Point residents. And anyway, we answered a lot of questions, clarified a lot of things. Currently, the applicant that has turned in, and as I explained, there are two different issues. You know, the applicant is running through. He'll be hopefully sometime here in the near future will be coming forward with his preliminary plat approval. That'll have its own course it'll run, and at some point in time between plat approval and final plat, it makes it that far, we'll come in and I'll present a contract to you guys for the land purchase if that continues to go forward. And at that point in time, we can discuss that. But one doesn't have anything to do with the other than just a timing issue. So we explained that. So anyway, that's the current status of that. As you can see, this is just our real rough preliminary design sketch. We get about between 27 and 30 spots there. This is actually located on the southwest corner of the marina.
Closer to the park, closer to the beach.
Closer to the beach, yes, sir. And but anyway, in this entire, we would purchase 3 lots. And this map is, you can't really see it.
Put the pointer on where that picture is.
Yeah.
I'll go over there. Go ahead. You keep going.
Rocking. You've always wanted to do that, I know.
Keep talking. I'll be
anyway, what it'll be is there you go. Purchases in the south. There you go. There you go. Three there. Also, what that allows us to do is there's a common area there that connects on the very south, that connects the south to the southeast side. That would allow for future expansion if ever was the need for doing that, for some type of slips in there. But that's, like I say, that's just something for a long time. But also what would come with that is we would, the ownership of the bottom right now is in the LLCs, and therefore the problem becomes is liability, then FEMA issues, et cetera, and that's where we're going to hopefully work with the developer and take that bottom. Therefore, when a storm comes and it plugs it up, FEMA can pay for it, as well as liability issues. The county would foot some of those liability issues. But also, what comes with the land is would be there's approximately 60 acres of wetlands. You need to point out that, and what that can be used for is the county is in constant need of wetland mitigation due to, that's on down, Randy, on down. There you go. There you go. That's it. And what we would use that for is wetland mitigation purposes to allow us to. In road and bridge, we're constantly needing, here and there with bridges, et cetera, we need land for mitigation purposes, and therefore that's free, and we would use that as a good free mitigation bank.
Not to fill in.
Not to fill in, but as a mitigation bank. So that outlines the entire deal. I think each one of you had the letter of intent sent, and that has gotten gotten around to. It was a letter of hard written, but it was just a letter of intent. So at the end of the day. So anyway, that's the nexus of this, and as I said, it's something that we've worked with some of the property owners there. We're trying to balance a lot of things there. We have some property owners along the Walker Creek Drive that we're trying to work with. We were working with as well. Had discussions with them. And I feel like we've moved in a direction that is what we've held up to our side, and we moved in a direction that we think is applicable to the majority of the folks that are there. So therefore, but anyway, that's where it rests. We haven't committed any money to it. We're not going to commit any money to it, and just wanted to bring you an update.
Can I ask some questions?
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, please. If we can go back to the conceptual. So that's basically an in-out design, and that's at the south end of that.
Southwest, yes, sir.
Right. And so what was the thought pattern in moving it there as opposed to utilizing where the boat ramp is right now and adding lots to that spot?
Well, a couple of things is we met with along Walker Creek Drive there. We met with some of the homeowners there, and they expressed concern, which made sense, of the location of the existing ramp from the standpoint of sitting in their backyard. Okay, that we understood that, but also the ramp is as they stated, the ramp is not in a good location. There are constantly trash problems. There's problems with the existing ramp. There, it's shallow, etc. There was a whole lot of issues with the ramp at that point. So therefore, in working in conjunction with them, we said, okay, we'll work with you and the developer. Let's look at some other areas, and that's where we came back. And in fact, in the meeting, they said, yeah, we're good with that area. So therefore, we went with this. We went over here for this. But also, what this does is, one, is it doesn't take up as much acreage. But secondly, what it does, it allows us to have a touch of that common area, to be able to touch that common area, to where we actually own that common area, to utilize it for future. That way we're setting this up to where if you were in a business, you want to set it up where you can maximize your profits. Therefore, this sets us up to where we can maximize our utilization of this marina. Then also what it does is it's closer to our Shell Point Beach as well, so we can utilize the parking at both places potentially, but mainly from overflow for Shell Point Beach and possibly into here. Parking is an issue. We got that. We understand that, and that's something we're willing to work with the community on. But understand, at the end of the day, you could have 50 parking spots, 60 parking spots, 100 parking spots. You're still not going to have enough. So there's going to be always a parking problem at some point in time, not every day, but just in the once, 4th of July weekend, et cetera, and we'll work with them to work on those issues.
Two more reasons, if I could, David and Howard.
I'm waiting for him.
One good reason is that where the existing boat ramp is at, if we were to purchase 2 additional lots needed for parking, we'd have to buy that building that's there too.
Right.
That building is useless to the county, so we'd be paying for something that we're just going to have to turn around and tear down, and it has no use. So, and another reason, this isn't a super important reason, but apparently the prevailing winds blow all the seaweed right towards the ramp that's there now, and by moving it to this location, the prevailing winds will keep the seaweed out of it and keep the boats.
As well as we negotiated the same price for the 3 lots as we had on the 2 lots. We were going to be given 1 lot and had to buy 2 other lots, and we negotiated the same price on 3 higher price lots.
So I just want to thank you for coming up with at least some initiative to try to preserve or put in place a county boat ramp. And I think that your efforts may have caused some stir, but I think they were well intended, and I think that you did a good job on it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey,
last thing. Last thing is bring you up to date. Section 8 housing. Currently, that is administered through Meridian. Meridian has notified us that whenever their contract is up, they no longer want to perform those services. Main reason is other counties. There's oh shucks, what's the word I'm thinking about? Authorities are taking over, other housing authorities are taking over other counties' Section 8 housing. Therefore, we talked to HUD about that, and HUD has asked us whether we want to go out to try to bid out for those services, or do we want to take it in-house, or do we want to give our services to another authority, primarily the Tallahassee Housing Authority. They have the capacity to do it. The problem with this is our program is small, and Meridian's reason for getting rid of not wanting to do this is they had Jefferson County and a couple other counties, and these counties have went with the housing authorities. The problem is from us they only make $5,300 a month, and it takes 2 or 3 people to administer a program. Therefore, economically it doesn't make sense for them. And once I looked at it, well, it doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make economic sense to you, it definitely doesn't. If we got to hire 2 people to do that, this doesn't make any sense. So anyway, what we're doing is we're still looking into this, and in the next meeting we'll definitely bring something back to you guys, asking you whether we want to move forward with an RFP, we want to pull it in-house, or do we want to continue to work with Tallahassee Housing Authority. And if that's so, we've already had some contact with them. There would be a couple of resolutions, et cetera, that we would need to pass through. It wouldn't mean anything to our citizens that are currently receiving it. There would be a caseworker that would come down once or twice a week, continue to work. They would continue to have an area here. Their office would be in, they would be able to be in our office facility just like Meridian is.
I'm for number 3.
But the good thing about what it would do is it would actually cut down on the amount of time that we spend. No longer would those funds flow from the federal government to the county to the customer. They would actually go straight from the federal government to this authority and then to the customer. Therefore, we would be out of that picture, and therefore potentially making it a little quicker for the customer to get reimbursed.
So if I understand, Section 8 is free money given to people to pay their rent. What it is. It's a
rent and electric bills, yes.
Rent and electric bills. It's a free government money program.
It's a free government money program. So, unless you guys all agree that we need to go with the Tallahassee Housing Authority, I'll bring something back with the positives and negatives on it. What I'm concerned with about putting an RFP is with Meridian getting out of this, as well as I'm talking to other county administrators, seems to be no private guys getting out of it because these authorities have stepped in, and there's, it only works with Meridian if they have 2 or 3 counties. So that's not working for them, so.
Just like Cleve probably wouldn't run the wastewater plant alone. He has to have
That's
all
right.
of them.
Right, so I'll be bringing that back to you guys and see if we can make a decision. Yes, sir.
Will Meridian still do our SHIP program?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's all I've got, sirs.
All right. Moving into our citizens to be heard section, I did have two people that turned in cards, and they said they both wanted to speak on the Shell Point, so I figure we'll lead off the citizens to be heard with that. Got Mr. John Tenowitz.
You had to stay all night to say something.
It's a pleasure to be here, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to address y'all. I've never been to one of these meetings before. It's a little more contentious than I thought they were. I'll have to make sure I'm home in time to watch Justified, so I'll be brief. I live in Shell Point. I live on Walker Creek. And thank you all very much for the road repair. It's beautiful. The contractors are doing a great job from what I can tell. I've been a full-time resident of Shell Point since '92. I used to live on Royster Drive. I still have a house there that I can't sell if anybody in the audience is interested in moving to Shell Point. What I would like you to do with the boat ramp issue, there's a lot of controversy in Shell Point. Some people want one, some people don't. I mean, I personally don't want a boat ramp down there open to the public because I'm worried that it's going to bring a disreputable element down there like the Marine Patrol. But that was a joke, maybe. But what I would really like for you to do is to get the input from the people of Shell Point. And Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Moore, thank you all for attending one of our little get-togethers. I think you saw that a lot of people there have lots of ideas. We've talked to Terry Clayton, the developer, and he's got 3 other lots which are on Dockside Drive, and a lot of people think that that would be much better location to put the ramp in. He's even indicated that he would sell the lots to the county at a lesser price than the other 3 lots are, so we can save the county a little money. These lots are directly across from the public beach. There's bathroom access, and I think the overwhelming opinion in Shell Point, although I'm only speaking for myself, is that that would be a preferable area to have the ramp. So and I'm not really sure how y'all would do this, but if there can just be some mechanism to get the input of the Shell Point community, I think it would certainly make everybody happier with the eventual decision that you guys make. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Didn't you go down there and meet? You said 100 people attended a meeting or something?
Our next citizen is Miss Barbara Slaughter.
I'm Barbara Slaughter, 1649 Shell Point Road. I've been there since 1996. And I was at the meeting last night, and there's close to 100 people, and there was a unanimous vote that did not like this idea here. So, because nobody really knew about the other meeting until we all got on phones and called people. So this meeting was our meeting at the fire department, so a lot of people show up. And a lot of people were surprised at what was going on and putting it right in the middle of our community with a fence around it and boats and trailers and stuff that we feel like is going to devalue our property. So we're not totally against something going in, but we want to make sure that it's in the right spot. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. And Chris Russell.
Again.
I know.
The first one, did he?
I don't think.
No, this is on the boat ramp.
No, this citizen to be heard.
This citizen's, huh?
I asked.
No, it's not. There's no.
This is actually.
That's not an
So you can't talk on what David brought up?
First citizens to be heard, you can't speak at this.
I understand that. We can't speak on what was brought up about the boat ramp from the county administrator?
No motion on.
No, that's a discussion.
Okay, you gotta
between
get your girl over there straight.
Well,
that was citizens to be heard.
Serendipity.
But it's on.
Okay.
Well,
But what do you got to say?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, come on.
As long as you like it.
I'm gonna go, well, there you have it. I'm gonna go split personality on you. I love it. I have a lot on Royster.
Makes
I agree. I agree with the dockside. I don't agree where, I agree with Commissioner Kessler. You did a great job trying to get in something. We need more boat ramps. The south side over there, I just see that being an issue with the traffic. The problem I have is, do we have the money to do it? I mean, that's where my bipolar is going on. Is we got it or we don't have it. If we don't have it for soccer, do we have it here? But if we got it, let's do it. Let's get more water access. Let's not stop there. Let's go to Carnegie. Those lots around there are very cheap. let's get that boat ramp going as well. So thanks for looking at that, getting it. We need to get more. I have to agree with the gentleman, and we haven't spoken. I unfortunately been out of town, so I missed the meetings. But I did see the email Ms. Slaughter was referring to for the meeting last night, where the consensus of that same group that you met with, I guess they got back together, was to if you could look and work with the developer on dockside. The outstanding question I have though is, isn't that developer required to give us?
Yes.
And doesn't that require some parking with it? So do we have to go buy something if he's required to give it to us? That's what my question is.
Yeah, we'll be donating that, but we'll talk to you after this, after the meeting.
So, I mean, it's a simple question.
Yeah.
He has to provide it, right?
Yes, he has to provide it. Yes.
Okay.
That is a requirement of
All
the
right,
PUD.
let's get more water access. Thank you. Is that good? Was that good enough for you, Dave?
Perfect.
Okay.
Don't do it again now.
Don't make Richard gavel you
That's
down.
right.
All right, we have 4 more. Oh, we've got Mr. Chuck Hickman, Charles Hickman. Well, what they were referring to, there was 3 citizens that had written that they wanted to speak on the boat ramp, so I just led them off in the citizens to be heard section is what it amounted to.
And you said that going into it.
Yeah.
Chuck Hickman, 528 Hickorywood Drive. I got two things I wanted to bring up. They came up basically during this meeting. First of all, I'm familiar with pulling a boat 400 miles downstate, pull up to a boat ramp at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and not having the boat ramp available to me because right next to it, on the backside of the parking lot, there were a lot of condos. Well, you've got the same situation down there in Shell Point, where it's just about the same distance across the canal, and you've got a bunch of condos. And guess what? They all got together and they said, we don't want the boat noise in the morning. So 400 miles dragging a boat, be thinking about it, commissioners, because it will come up if you're going to have that much traffic down there. That's opening a whole new bag of worms, and I'm just forewarning you. The other thing that I'm confused, pardon me, but I saw in the paper that we have a $600,000 shortfall in our budget. And yet tonight, something new came up, and I don't care if it's a penny on the dollar. This sounds to me like deficit spending whenever you turn around and you approve $10,000 to buy some materials to put on some roads, which is fine. I have nothing against that, believe me. I think that's necessary in this county. There's too many roads that need improvement. But I was sitting back there and I just was floored how fast that went whipping right through you. I mean, it was like there was no discussion per se. Where's the money? I hear David say, we've got the money. Well, if we have the money, then how do we have a $600,000 shortfall? Somebody explain that to me, will you?
I can explain it to you in 5 seconds after the meeting.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, our next citizen to be heard is Hugh Taylor.
I don't agree with Mr. Tenowitz. His father was my 9th grade football coach. Actually, I do. He's a good guy. And I want to be another one, Dave. I'm congratulating you on the Shell Point thing.
Thank you.
I was hoping somebody besides me would go on the record about how controversial and political it was, but you did a good job. I think you dug up a deal. I don't know the specifics, regardless of budget problems. I think, if nothing else, it might be able to even be bonded, or you could probably borrow money on the income it might throw off. I mean, debt service for counties is a lot different than debt service for, an individual. I don't think an individual now could go down there and build a marina, but a county could certainly go a long way towards doing it. And on that happy note, I came here for 3 reasons tonight, and I'm kind of frustrated because you only talked about one of them. So if you bear with me a little bit, I came, number 1, for the park thing. And here's what took me aback, because I went to the effort to, when the notice came out from Page about the workshop being canceled, to check and see if it was still on the agenda, and it was. And this may sound strange coming from me, but it was Mr. Moore's agenda item, and somehow it ended up with the chair canceling the agenda item, which seemed a bit, I don't want to say disrespectful, but it didn't sound quite fair to Mr. Moore if that was his agenda item. I was not in favor of the park. I did run dimensions on a soccer field, and the 20 acres at Shadeville School would more than provide a number of opportunities for multiple soccer fields, and that land, I'm assuming, is public land and easily accessible. But I did want to speak to it, and then by what authority, was Mr. Moore cut out of the picture? The wetlands, my position on the wetlands, so I wanted to speak to those. But I would remind you of one thing, because I've heard 1 cent sales tax for I guess a couple of weeks now with the Shell Point meeting. Well, we'll have this, and we have dedicated funds, and we have it's in the sales tax. I would strongly suggest you can, you wait on the referendum, because if the referendum passes, there is a chance the 1 cent sales tax will not. The other thing I wanted to address, which Mr. Merritt took off of his thing, is I don't know a whole lot about the community traffic safety team, but I do know over on our end of Martin Luther King Road, 35-mile-an-hour signs magically appeared with no vote. I guess you were attempting to vote on some stuff tonight. Change speed limits on 2 roads as directed by the community traffic safety team. I don't recall a notice or an agenda item about 35 miles an hour on our end of Martin Luther King. I'm scared to death of that intersection, Spring Creek and Martin Luther King. It's a blind corner, and it's going to be is that my 3 or 5? 5, I'm sorry. I won't ramble then. But, so, anyway, I'm deathly concerned with things magically appearing as your agenda item and your speed signs happened to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next citizen is Ron Basaki.
Yeah, appreciate it. Just a couple issues I wanted to bring up. On the comp plan, we've had discussions with DEO, DEP, ex-secretary of DCA, Tom Pelham. We've had discussions with him too. We assumed you would go ahead and adopt tonight. We will have sit-down discussions with both groups to look at further actions that can be taken. We know that we could go in and file against it to have a hearing. And so that's something we'll be contemplating. Grant side, it's just a caution. It's always nice to get free money, or even if it's partially shared money. But what usually doesn't come with that is continued maintenance money. So you've just always got to be careful that you don't commit yourself for 10 years down the road. For example, if you want to buy a building, you get a building, that's nice. But you're going to have to maintain that building for 20 or 30 years. And so that's adding additional costs that you got to be aware of. The last item I've written down is, it's called hypocrites. Mr. Harden, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Harden came to me in April of 2012 when he was campaigning at the Wildlife Festival. Came and sat down, we had a long talk. And he said, I'm really a strong supporter of water issues. I'll do whatever I can to protect Wakulla Springs and elsewhere. Matter of fact, he said, if I'm elected, I'm going to give a portion of my salary to the Friends of Wakulla Springs. I haven't seen a penny of that. So
Probably because I don't recall that meeting happening at all.
Oh, that's convenient, yes. Commissioner Thomas, he comes down to Shell Point, goes next door to the Seeley's house, invites about 10 of us over. He says, what a great community you have there. Really love it down here. My wife even donated to his campaign. The wetlands come around. He says, those people at Shell Point don't want you to have what they already have.
Okay,
Wait a minute.
now you're not telling the truth. Dig the truth.
No,
Just-
wait a minute. My turn.
We'll let you finish.
And you're not supposed to be able to respond to citizens during this period. Never once did I hear either of the commissioners in their campaigns saying they're against wetlands issues. Never once. And yet, repeatedly on his blog and in person, Commissioner Thomas has said, they don't want you to have what they have.
Correct.
That's being a hypocrite.
You live in the wetlands, sir.
You come down there and talk to people and say what a great place it is, and then you tell us that we're hypocrites. So.
And you are.
Not communist like you called us, though, Ralph.
I called you a socialist. I'm sorry, collectivist. I called you a collectivist.
We're going to have a discussion area in just a second.
Mr. Chairman,
I've got one.
we have a policy of no interaction
Yes.
with citizens speaking. Thank
Yes.
you.
David Damon.
Yeah, I want to talk about common sense, safety, and taxpayer dollars. Something was brought up tonight I hadn't planned to stick around and talk on, but I think I will. And here's what I'm wondering. 319 currently, it's about the realignment of pushing all that traffic into the high school. Currently, when you drive to the beach and you go down 319, you go through Crawfordville, you bypass the high school completely. When you're coming from the beach, you bypass the high school completely. I looked into the traffic count there. That's 11,700 vehicles.
Sir.
Excuse me, am I interrupting you?
No, we'll keep talking. I'm talking.
But you can't hear me if you're talking.
I can hear you fine.
David, I want to ask Paige. Paige, did he speak on the first citizens to be heard? That was the question that Commissioner Maris asked.
Several people have.
Hmm?
Several people tonight have.
You're only supposed to speak under one, and we need to be fair, consistent to everybody.
Mm-hmm. So you have. I was looking for the card earlier, but do you have a card where he spoke in the first citizens to be heard?
11,700 vehicles per day are being pushed into Wakulla High School.
Point of order. Can we reset his time, please?
Into the entrance of Wakulla High School with this realignment idea. Common sense would dictate that is ridiculous. Why would we intentionally channel 11,700 vehicles straight into the high school to a traffic light? It makes no sense at all. That makes a total adding to the 98 of 4,000 more vehicles. That's 15,700 vehicles a day we're going to mix with our beginner driver students. If we care about public safety, we care about our students, this is a ridiculous idea. Now, if we need traffic lights, let's put a traffic light in. That's fine. But don't channel all of 319 into the high school. This is another case of inventing a problem in order to profit from an invented solution. Thank you.
He did speak at the first one. We need to,
Okay, got it.
we need to find a way to keep track of that so we're fair to everybody. Maybe you can have them write 1 or 2 on the card. Deal.
That's a good idea.
I mean, we don't want to treat David any different than we would Bob Danzy or somebody.
Right. No, it's a good idea.
But that's all of our citizens to be heard. The next session was going to do with the discussion issues by commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and start it. I want to respond to what Ron Padsaki said. That conversation that you referred to, that never happened. And if I said something, then I would be glad to own up to it. But you sat up there and you bald-faced on television, lied. I mean, and you want to say that I said something that I didn't say, and I can prove you my point. Okay. During the campaign, there was that when all of us was on stage at the community center, each of us was asked questions. One of the questions that we was asked was, "What is our view on the wetland?" I was open and honest with my view on the wetlands. That view was published in the paper. If I remember right, also Commissioner Thomas's was view in there. My view is published public record throughout it. And my view is the exact opposite of what you stood on that podium and said. Okay, now if I said something, I was raised, if I'd said something, I would admit. But you stood up there and you straight up lied to me, and I want the citizens, people at home to know that you and I never even had that conversation. And you're a grown man. You need to do better.
Were you at the festival?
Yes, sir. I was at the festival, but you and I never had that conversation. We're not going to get into argument, okay? I'm going to move on. Yeah, but you and I never said the things that you said. I'm not going to get in a dialogue with you. All I'm going to say is you bald-faced lie to me right there at that podium. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
All right, I'll do next. I had asked David to put this on his item, but he threw me on the bus and didn't do it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just an update. I got elected vice chair of the Appalachia Regional Planning Council, which is has 28 members. It represents Wakulla, Calhoun, Franklin, Gadsden, Gulf, Jackson, Jefferson, Leon, and Liberty. That means I'm on the 3-member executive committee that directs the future direction of the ARPC, and I think that's just good representation for Wakulla County to have our member on 2 leadership positions on 2 different regional councils.
I agree.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
congratulations. I apologize. I just got involved in the moment of this other stuff. So.
The question was asked earlier about the money, the budget shortfall, and why are we spending money on asphalt. The money the county gets is allocated in certain streams that you can only use for certain things. The money that's being used for asphalt millings is gas tax money. Is that correct? That could not be used to subsidize the shortfall in the sheriff's department's budget for prisoners. It can only be used for that. And there's other funds, for example, that can only be used.
1 cent sales tax, same way.
1 cent sales tax, gas tax money. You can't just spend them on whatever you want to. You can only spend them on certain things. So I hope that explains it.
I don't have much to say. I hope after this meeting, everybody has a good evening and they all sleep tight.
Thomas?
Yes, you know, since I've been in this office, I've tried my best to engage with everyone, speak to anyone on any issue, anytime. I'll go to them, they can come to me, and whether they agree with me or not, I try to treat them with respect, and I don't see why we can't do that. You know, I hear tonight that the petition count has been met, but it seems like there's no joy in that. It seems like there's no victory in that. It seems like instead, you guys want to come in here and sling mud. You guys want to come in here and you know, poke something that's not necessary. Mr. Lambu, you said that I raised the issue about the single subject. I did not do that, sir.
I'm not the one that raised that. But you put that out there, and it goes out over the TV, and people might think that you're a nice man, seem credible, might think you're telling the truth. But you're not, sir. You're not telling the truth. I didn't bring that up. The gentleman that brought it up is in the room tonight. Mr. Pisecki? Mr. Pisecki, I did not impugn the integrity of Shell Point. Never, sir. Never did I do that. There are plenty of people in Shell Point in your neighborhood that enjoy living in a beautiful community just like you do, near the wetlands, but they understand property rights. For some reason, you have this have versus have-not mentality that you think it's okay because you have it and no one else should be able to. Regardless of when you bought it, why you bought it, how you're a good steward of the environment but no one else can be. I absolutely have made comments about people that I think are hurting the property rights of their neighbors. All I've asked for, and I'm speaking for me, but we as a group have not voted to take anything away from anyone. What we have voted to do is to restore those property rights so people can decide. They might be able to build a house just like you in close proximity to the water. I assume you're being a good steward of the environment because you care so much about it. And if you are, why can't I do it? Why can't he do it? Why can't she do it? Why can't our neighbors do it? When I was 18 years old, in 1985, I joined the Navy. I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I did that with the promise of my very life, if that's what was called on me. I didn't do that callously. I did that seriously. I took that seriously. I believed it, and I believe it today. When I took this office in 2012, I swore the same oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Article 5 of the Constitution says, "Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." When we're regulating the use of people's property and we're not willing to compensate them for them, we are taking the property. All I'm asking for is fair and equal treatment for everybody. And I'll be glad to speak with you, have lunch with you, whatever we need to do. But
Why we supported Randy, and we would agree with it. But you and Richard said, we don't want a thing to do with that, let's kick it all off.
we heard another gentleman tonight that can't use his property, and I never even met him or heard from him until tonight. There are people in this county that are trying to build a modest home and trying to live with their family just like you do, and they're not able to use their property, even in the 35-foot zone. That's wrong, sir. That's wrong. And I will sleep well tonight because I know I haven't taken anything away from anyone. I haven't set up a situation where someone's property is going to be flooded without them having a recourse to correct that if they take that action. All I have done tonight is I have allowed the people to decide what they're going to do with their property, or at least the first step of that. I know we're not finished with that. But this whole idea that you guys, you said it yourself. Ms. Peck, I'm sorry she's not here. I'd say it in front of her. She said it herself. She goes and signs a petition and she doesn't even mention the wetlands. It's not about the wetlands. It's about the right to vote. That's a fallacy. We have no mechanism whatsoever to stop someone's right to vote, nor have we ever. Now, I will encourage people, please do not use your right to vote to take away someone else's right, especially your neighbor. Because if we've got the power to take away rights from people, then they're not rights. Then they're just privileges that are just granted by the whim. We were elected, duly elected, to try to think for the majority of this county, but to protect the minority. If no one stands for the minority, then we've got mob rule, and that's not a system that I want to be a part of. That's not what I promised you when I came to Shell Point. One of my promises, and I put it on every piece of literature that I wrote, is freedom belongs to the people and shall not be infringed upon by the government. I said that time and time again. I put it on my blog. I'm holding myself accountable. I'm putting it out there, and I'm reminding people that that's what I said. I said it because that's what I believe, and that's what I'm going to stick with. And you know what? If people don't respect the fact that I respect that they should have their property rights, then I might not be the guy that's supposed to be in this seat. And I'm okay with that. But that's who I am, that's who I said I was, and I've been consistent with that.
Are you sure you don't want to say anything?
On the ballot and also on who's petition.
Yes, sir.
You got to say something, Jerry.
Mr. Kessler.
Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I guess I'll begin and go backwards. Mr. Pisecki and myself and other people at Shell Point own property with wetlands. Mr. Pisecki owns property that is on, I believe, a canal that was dredged out. And that was okay back then, to do a lot of dredging, do a lot of filling. But I think we've learned that we just can't keep on doing that kind of stuff and destroying our wetlands. I think we've learned the importance of the wetlands, not just in our ecosystem, but economically. To replace what these wetlands do costs us way more money. So why can't I do what Mr. Pisecki did? Because we should know better by now. When Mr. Pisecki didn't do it, he wasn't the one that dredged out that canal. Someone did.
1975.
Yeah, when I bought my property, someone had already done what they did. Okay, it was done. That it was right or wrong, it was right at the time. We wouldn't do some of those things now as easily, hopefully. So, as far as the petition, and I can speak for myself and the groups that I've gone out there with, and I think Ron Pisecki can speak for himself of how many hundreds, if not thousands, and I think thousands of information sheets, very detailed, were handed out to people. And there was no avoidance of having discussions at length concerning wetlands. And property rights, we all love it. But living in a society, we have some loss of our property rights. That's what happens. Don't tell me what to do on my property. Well, the building department's going to tell you what to do on your property when you go to build your house. Don't tell me how to drive my car. Well, some state trooper's going to tell you how to drive your car. And it goes on. We live in a society. And because we live in a society, this issue of the intersection of 319 and 98 is very troublesome. To divert that traffic in front of a high school with no need to divert it there is something wrong. To pay what appears to be $300,000 an acre for property to divert this 319 to end up in front of the high school, there's something wrong with it. And this board is now aware of the issue. I know this board did not promote 98 and 319 intersection realignment. This board prioritized 4 intersections to the north part of 319 where our traffic is congested and we needed help. Somehow, this now realignment of 319 and 98 leapfrogs over everything that the county had prioritized, and miraculously there's funding there, and there's no funding for our intersections that we prioritized. At least that's what we know at this point in time. So I urge this board, and I'm going to put on the I have proposed to put on the agenda at the next meeting for us to have a workshop to discuss this 319 and 98, to look at whatever traffic studies that have been done, not just a recommendation from somebody, but actual traffic studies that have been done, if any, to get as much input and to invite people from the DOT down to explain their rationale for moving this 319 in front of our high school where we have beginning drivers going to school. And I hope the board will consider approving that workshop so we can get the DOT's discussion on this out to the public. Thank you.
Has there been something in the explanation from DOT to you personally that you're not clear about or it's not complete? Have you talked to DOT? to the DOT guys?
I went up to the CRTPA and I found out as much as I could there. I'm scheduled to give a Mr. Polk a call trying to set something up with him, but I'm holding off on part of that until I hear the board's willingness or not to have them come down.
Because I had got with David, and I asked him to, in writing, ask DOT that whatever money was allocated to that project did not preempt the other ones, and they wrote back with a response.
That's right, they wrote back a response. But also, Bryant, on the next agenda, Bryant Park from DOT will be here to discuss 319 as well.
Great.
So.
Great, we can put some questions
at
that point, but...
Just don't make him so mad that they don't give us any more money.
I hear you.
Motion to adjourn, we're done.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn, second. Let's go home.
You want me to get this here,